purpose of today's mission.
And I've heard a comparison of the size of the International Space Station. It's about the size of a football field, correct?
That's right. About the size of a football field is the entire thing. Now, I've asked several astronauts about, what's it feel like inside? And some people say it's about the size of a 5-bedroom house, but it doesn't really feel that way because it's more long than it is, wide with different bedrooms, this, that, and the other way. So they say it's more like the inside of a 747 aircraft.
Oh, wow. Well, the Crew 2 crew will get to see what that is like very soon. Over the next few hours, we will be staying with you through these 5 major burns. We have completed the phase burns so far on Dragon. And again, we are coming up on suit doffing, where the crew will get out of those suits and get a little bit more comfortable inside of Crew Dragon.
You're getting a live look at both of the control rooms that are monitoring Dragon's approach to the International Space Station. On the right, that's where we are here at SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, California. The flight controllers there have the primary responsibility of Dragon's rendezvous phase with the International Space Station. Now, that does not mean that the International Space Station flight control room you see at the left over in Houston will be unstaffed at any time. Those rooms are staffed 24 hours a day to watch over the International Space Station. They not only will be looking after that vehicle, but they'll be looking after the Crew Dragon and getting status updates as it makes its way to the International Space Station. Right as we get past these 5 major burns. Again, we just completed the first one, the phase burn. That was 35 minutes right after orbital insertion. It was a 2-minute burn. There's a couple more burns coming up, but that'll complete the rendezvous phase, and then we'll get into the approach phase. Right before we get into the approach ellipsoid, we'll enter into joint operations. When we're in joint operations, that's a whole new set of flight rules. At that time, both of these control rooms that you see on your screen will be looking after
SpaceX for next burn.
We'll be looking after the same procedures. Now we'll stand by for the call on the next burn.
Go ahead for next burn.
And Dragon, we will not be taking the OOP burn that is stated on your timeline. However, we do expect 1 to 2 small phase burns ahead of the boost burn per your displays.
Okay, I copy. No OOP burn, but a couple of small phase burns. Thanks.
Good words.
We heard that call out that there will be no OOP burn. What does OOP mean, Gary?
Oop, there it is, right? Out of plane burn. So, like I said, there are 5 major burns, and they really are calculated for some of the major maneuvers to get the Dragon closer to the International Space Station. An out-of-plane burn is an additional burn that can be utilized if the trajectory needed to be corrected at some point. But that's a good call that doesn't need to be corrected. There's going to be additional phase burns. However, that boost burn that was mentioned is not going to happen for a while. It'll happen about 15 hours from now is the boost burn. However, during that time period, it seems like there's going to be a couple of phase burns which might happen during the crew sleep period, and that jolt might wake them up for just a second, but hopefully they're short enough. Not anything like the boost burn. The boost burn's pretty long, but it might impact them a little bit. But really, that next major burn is the boost burn. The phase burn will just correct it, sort of like the OOP burn, just maybe smaller.
Right, and if you're just now joining us, we are watching Crew 2 make their way to the International Space Station. As a reminder of who is on board, we have the commander, Shane Kimbrough. We have pilot, Megan McArthur, who is actually the wife of Bob Behnken, who flew on Demo 2 last year. And then we have mission specialist, Thomas Pesquet, as well as Akihiko Hoshide.
That's right. All 4 will be spending the next 6 months on board the International Space Station conducting scientific experiments. That really is their mission. The Crew Dragon, really that mission is delivering the crew to the International Space Station for them to conduct all of that science. There is a lot of work to do. One of the major things they're going to be doing during their 6-month stay is upgrading the International Space Station with brand new solar arrays. Those arrays are set to be delivered by the SpaceX Dragon later in the summer, and some of the Crew 2 astronauts may be put on the list to conduct a series of spacewalks to go ahead and install them.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it kind of makes sense that the astronauts on board the station have to take care of the station as well, because nobody else can do it, right?
That's right. In fact, a lot of the outside of the International Space Station was specifically designed to allow to be. This was my favorite term by one of the EVA officers, was EVA-able. It just means that it was specially designed for the crew to interact with it. So you have quick disconnects, you have cables and wire ties, all that are on the outside of the International Space Station. Really, 200 and something spacewalks have been conducted for the maintenance and upgrades needed to maintain the International Space Station.
Wow, that's incredible. And that must be really cool for them to be able to do an EVA walk. Must be very surreal to be outside of the station and be able to see Earth from outer space.
Easily one of the highlights of every astronaut that you can ask questions of. What's some of the highlights of a spacewalk? And that is, or highlights of their trip to space, rather, and that is really a spacewalk. Spacewalks are about 6.5 hours long, roughly, but in that time, they're really dense, packed procedures. It is really just, you got to go from one spot to the other. But one of the most sought after moments is when you have to wait for just a second. So sometimes, for example, there are thermal constraints on the outside of the International Space Station. Some of the components need to be either hot or cold, depending on if the sun is shining on them. So they'll ask the astronauts to just sit back and wait for a second. And that is some of the highly sought after moments, because it's so densely packed that that moment will be they'll finally get to pause and look down at the Earth.
That sounds amazing. I bet it is breathtaking and taking their breath away in that very short moment that they have. So we do have some social questions. Is there preparation for new astronauts, and what are requirements for being an astronaut?
That is a good question. NASA is looking at selecting a new class of astronauts. The most recent class of astronauts was selected in 2017. All of them have trained and have been certified as astronauts. They undergo about 2 years of basic training as astronaut candidates, just T-38 training. Those are the jets. They do some training in the neutral buoyancy laboratory, some survival training. All of them have undergone that. So they are ready for those next steps. In fact, we'll start to see a lot of those guys start flying very, very soon, just being recently selected in 2017. Minimum requirements is you have to have a master's degree in a science or engineering or math field. You have to have relevant experience to whatever degree you have, and you have to have the ability to pass a NASA medical test.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. So kids, you know what to do if you want to be an astronaut. And some cool views. We are on the space station, and that is astronaut Victor Glover. He is getting the station prepared for the arrival of Crew 2 as we speak. You can see he has his tablet there. He's following the procedures to get the hatch ready for crew arrival.
Not just the hatch, but they'll be doing a number of procedures to get ready for Crew 2's arrival. This right here, what you're looking at, is the Casa. It is the new bedroom of the International Space Station. There are 4 bedrooms on the USOS side, or U.S. operating segment. All 4 are currently occupied, and there are 2 over on the Russian side. Now, with crews flying regularly to and from the International Space Station on both commercial providers and on the Soyuz, we're now moving up from a regular staffing of, or population rather, of the International Space Station from 6 to 7. So there's a new sleep station for that 7th crew member. Now, when Crew 2 arrives, there's going to be a little bit of a handover, a couple of days where Crew 1, including astronaut Victor Glover, who has been on board the International Space Station since November of last year, there's going to be 11 people on board, so no, not enough bedrooms to go around. But whenever Crew 1 departs and returns, now scheduled for April 28th, they will have bedrooms for everybody.
And this is pretty cool that Victor is the one getting everybody, or getting the station ready for Crew 2 to arrive, because he flew on Crew 1 about 6 months ago. And this is actually his first trip to space and first trip on the International Space Station. So I'm sure that he is super excited to be able to get the space station set up for Crew 2's arrival and welcome the Crew 2 crew.
That's right. He's been lucky enough to have his own bedroom. I think they might have done rock, paper, scissors. I'm not exactly sure how they had it, but Commander Mike Hopkins actually has been sleeping in Crew Dragon Resilience during his stay aboard the International Space Station. Dragon Resilience and Crew Dragon Endeavour will be sleep stations for some of the crew that are coming up now. I believe Hopkins will continue to sleep in Crew Dragon Resilience, and I'm not sure who's going to do the rock, paper, scissors or whatever game they were playing earlier, the one from Thomas' childhood. That was so fun to find out. But they'll probably play a game to see who's going to sleep in Endeavour for the time being. In the meantime, Victor Glover continues to set up the station, and that'll be ready again for the Crew 2 astronauts whenever Crew 1 departs.
I wonder if they're fighting for sleeping in Crew Dragon, because I've heard that the best view is from Dragon attached to the space station.
That's true. The Russian sleep quarters have a window, so I'm sure a lot of the crew members on the US OS side are a little jealous of that. There are 4 sleep stations on each of actually the walls. They kind of look like telephone booths, but they're on the ceiling and on the floor as well. But they do not have windows, so it's just the Russian segment that has the windows, and of course the lucky one that gets to sleep in a Crew Dragon.
It sounds like we do have audio on station, so we might hear some call-outs there and some comms. Again, if you're just now joining us, what you are looking at is a view from the International Space Station as Victor Glover is getting the station ready for Crew 2's arrival. And he just floated off the screen.
And Icon 2, one clarifying question. You just reported you had the fasteners hand tight on the left side wall. Is that all of the fasteners, including the ones you couldn't get to with the tool earlier?
Negative. Of the 8, only 4 are engaged in hand tight. The 4 centered. They are not engaged at all. It's an interesting fastener that requires you to kind of loosen it. Then this wing nut catches, and then you can tighten it. And I cannot actuate it. So the 4 center ones are completely disengaged.
Okay, we copy. We're thinking we're probably going to need those engaged, but we're still talking about it, so stand by.
So what you just heard, the crew aboard the International Space Station, including Victor Glover, are now about 3 hours into their workday, having woken up just a few hours ago. Not shifting quite with the Crew 2 astronauts, who after doffing their suits will have a meal and then enter into a sleep period. Part of the reason why they are on a 23-hour trajectory. But the voices you were hearing were Victor Glover on board the International Space Station, and I believe that was the voice of Kathy Bolt, who is a Capcom over in Mission Control Houston.
And that is so cool, Gary, that we get to hear them live on the International Space Station, because it is...
Dragon SpaceX for PMC.
Go ahead for PMC.
Dragon, for awareness, we can perform the PMC at any time, so if desire to perform early, just let us know.
Okay, thanks. We'll let you know.
We got some more communications with the core to the crew.
And Icon 2 with forward plan.
It's actually incredible, Jesse, to hear and see both at the same time. 2 different crews on 2 different sleep schedules. in space, and they'll be joining each other in space when they dock about 23 hours from now. What you heard on the Dragon side was a PMC, or a private medical conference. These are common through really any human space flight, so the private medical conference will be the first chance for...
I wanted to fit check a tool. I've got the 3/16 L wrench. It's going to be close, but it might work. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, we were going to let you know that we do need to get those fasteners at least hand tightened, and our suggestion would be to back off the seat track a little bit, get it loose, and then try and get under that seat track, and then hand tighten as best you can.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to do that. That seat track is engaged by two very large torque fasteners, and removing those is always a risk because they're really easy to strip in removal. I had to do it earlier today, so I think we can do that. They're engaged all the way now, so it'll be a little higher torque. But if you're okay with that risk, then I will put that in work. I've got the tools.
And Ike, to be clear, we did talk about that, but we do only want those fasteners backed off just a couple of turns, if possible.
Again, really cool to see two...
Yeah, a couple of turns isn't going to do anything for you, so I'm going to have to almost completely remove the seat track to make a difference. So a couple of turns would essentially just like break torque, and it's a very long fastener with a lot of closely spaced threads. So a couple of turns is going to get me essentially no difference, and I have to get a tool right underneath where the C-track covers. So the plane to engage the tool into the hex head is the same plane that I engage the torque fitting to get the C-track installed. So I actually would, to make this simple, I'd have to completely remove one side of the C-track, but if I completely back them out, maybe like a quarter of an inch remaining, it's like an inch and a half long fastener. So if I leave like a quarter of an inch or half an inch, then I've got some access to get in there and use the L wrench.
Yeah, and Ike, we understand, and our goal is just for you to not back it out completely. So back it out as far as you need to be able to get the access you need. Copy, thumbs up.
And some communications with Victor, getting the basically the bed ready for crew 2 or one of the crew members. And you may have heard them call him Ike on the comms. They talked about this during crew 1. Ike stands for KE, which is I know everything. And so they joked about it around that time, and now I think everybody just calls him Ike.
That's right. When asked about it, he'll often say, it's a good opportunity and a reminder to keep his mouth shut. He has said that several times. So that's what they're doing on board the International Space Station now, is really just walking through the procedures of installing that new bedroom. So there's bolts, and they have to make sure that things don't strip. Things are a little bit different in space. What's nice is that Victor Glover does not have to do it alone. He's got support on the ground there in Mission Control Houston. The voice you're hearing was a Capcom, so all the different flight control support members are able to filter the information through that Capcom, who is Kathy Bolt today, up to Victor Glover as he kind of works his way through some of these procedures, which were nice and conveniently velcroed or fastened onto his hip with a little tablet. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and you could see that Velcro on his pants. Obviously, they're in space, so it's probably hard to be able to have...
SpaceX Endeavour, we're ready for the PMC.
Okay, SpaceX copies. We'll get that in work.
Some more communications with the core to Dragon. They're getting ready to perform the PMC.
Private medical conference, that's right, and that'll be one of those checks before they go ahead and go to bed. There's a couple more things. They have their meal, and then they have a pre-sleep period. Basically, just kind of get situated because again, they have a sleep period built into their rendezvous to the International Space Station. We've heard some of the communications with the Corps here on the ground mentioning that private medical conference was very flexible in terms of timing. They could have talked really any point before their sleep period. Just make sure they're okay, feeling good before they head to bed for what's allotted an 8-hour sleep period.
Yeah, and they have multiple check-ins, right, for these medical check-ins to make sure that they are healthy throughout their entire mission. And they have a dedicated flight surgeon, correct, or a doctor that's dedicated to each of the crew members. So when they do this PMC, there is one for each crew member.
That's right. And they'll often staff mission control with surgeons and biomedical engineers that are able to monitor not only the health of the astronauts, but also some of the support equipment to help them maintain their health. So this includes a advanced resistive exercise device that sort of simulates weightlifting, but you don't really lift weights in zero gravity, so it sort of simulates that. It does get up to pretty intense resistance, hundreds of pounds kinds of resistance. They also have a stationary bicycle and a treadmill.
So they do get to work out in space.
They get to, and they have to. Yeah, to actually maintain their muscle and bone density when in space. If they were to just leave it alone, you would see some deterioration in both of those. But they found out that exercising regularly, they give them about 2.5 hours every day by doing a combination of resistive exercise and aerobic exercise. It really helps to maintain that bone and muscle mass when they're in space for that long.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're looking at on your screen is, on your left-hand screen, a beautiful view of Earth. And on your right-hand screen is Victor, whom looks like he is upside down in the view, but there is no upside down or right side up in space. So he's there preparing for the Crew 2's arrival. What he's working on right now is getting one of the bedrooms ready. And he's working with the team on the ground. They are assisting him with this preparation.
The view on the left is a view of the Mediterranean Sea. The International Space Station flying about 262 statute miles right over it on a southeasterly trajectory about to head over Egypt. That's what you see in the distance there. Now, the crew themselves have a pretty packed work day today. There's it's generally like that. Just ahead of really every day is crammed to about 5-minute increments, planned way in advance for all of the crew to perform their various experiments. As you see now, Victor Glover working on the install of the Jaxa, or the new bedroom of the International Space Station. In the meantime, 2 other astronauts, Commander Shannon Walker and Soichi Noguchi of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, are both exercising. Shannon Walker on the stationary bicycle, and Soichi Noguchi on the advanced resistive exercise device doing some weightlifting.
We do have a couple minutes before the crew on Crew Dragon begins their meal. So we'll take some of your questions. Again, if you do have any questions, please use the hashtag LaunchAmerica. And we have a question here. Will Crew 2 have to sleep in the Crew 2 capsule?
The answer is yes, for one of the crew. So when Crew 2 arrives, they're going to bring the station population up to a whopping 11. Luckily, it will only be like that for a couple of days. There are currently 6 installed bedrooms on the International Space Station.
Kathy,
You just saw...
from Columbus, I've got the 6-inch long 3/16 ball tip.
We are privatizing the
is going to make this possible.
Surgeon on private channel.
Copy, thanks.
Yeah, and that communication, they were kind of overlapping there, but one was from Victor Glover, who is installing that 5th bedroom that I was talking about, our 7th bedroom, once because in regular crew rotation flights, so for about 6 months at a time, there's going to be 7 crew on board the International Space Station, 4 on a commercial vehicle, in this case Dragon, and then 3 on the Russian Soyuz. That is on the other end of the International Space Station, but there's accommodations for all 7 now on board. So during that couple days handover where there's 11 on board, everyone's going to have to find a different room to sleep in. So you'll have someone in the Crew Dragon Resilience, someone in Crew Dragon Endeavour, and then others will find different areas around the International Space Station. At nighttime, they do turn the lights down. They have emergency lighting just in case there was some event that were to happen, so they could find their way to the next, to a milestone or find the way around station. But really, I mean, you can strap yourself to literally any wall with a sleeping bag and call it a bedroom. It's actually nice.
And now that the crew has started their meal, let's take a look ahead to our upcoming milestones. At 5:40 a.m. Pacific time, or 12:40 UTC, mission control will shift change, and that is necessary because this is a 24-hour flight, so we want to make sure that our crew in mission control gets some sleep and some rest. That is very important for these critical missions, so we will have a shift change. Then at 4:55 a.m. Pacific time, will be the first opportunity for the crew to talk to all of you, the viewers. That'll be pretty exciting to hear from the crew on board Dragon. At 9:25 a.m. Pacific time will be dinner time for the crew. And from there, a couple hours later, they will be going to sleep at 11 a.m. Pacific time, or 1800 GMT. And hopefully be able to get a good 8 hours of rest. And during their sleep period, we are going to be bringing you a recap of today's highlights and taking a closer look at the careers of each of our crew members.
Over the last 20 years, crews aboard the space station have completed over 3,000 scientific and educational experiments, and Crew 2 is prepared to add to that growing number. Once Crew 2 arrives at the space station, they'll spend the next 6 months working in our orbital laboratory. Having 7 crew members on board, with 5 of those on the U.S. side compared to the 3 we've had for years, significantly expands the amount of research that can be conducted.
Not only will the crew be contributing to hundreds of experiments, they'll also be bringing some with them on Crew Dragon. Resupply hardware for the vascular aging study is one of those experiments. This investigation is part of a series of studies from the Canadian Space Agency looking at the effects of weightlessness on astronauts' blood vessels and hearts. Vascular aging hones in on issues known to pose risks to astronauts' health, like radiation and insulation resistance, a precursor to type 2 diabetes. Studying the responses of the cardiovascular system in space better equips us to understand how our arteries age here on Earth.
Also launching aboard Crew Dragon is hardware for an experiment called Celestial Immunity. It builds on earlier studies to evaluate how gravity affects our immune response. It uses cells from both elderly and younger adult donors to study possible age-associated effects. The investigation could uncover novel immune pathways useful for the development of new vaccines and drugs to prevent and treat existing and emerging human diseases.
Including hardware to support new science on board station, Crew Dragon is carrying more than 500 pounds of cargo today. This also includes crew supplies like clothing and shoes, cameras, lights, and spare parts and tools for spacewalking, the station's exercise devices, and life support hardware on station.
And once Dragon is ready to come home, the teams will pack several hundred pounds of cargo inside the capsule to return to teams on Earth. When Crew 1 returns as early as next week, they'll be carrying more than 260 pounds of science samples for researchers back on Earth to analyze from more than a dozen research projects. They'll also bring any old or failed parts from station systems, giving technicians on the ground a chance to analyze hardware up close and potentially refurbish and refly parts to the station. So for the latest on some of the activities happening on board the International Space Station now, in fact, the crew is undergoing a number of different things as they're just starting their day on board. Let's head over to Courtney in Houston for the latest. Courtney?
Yep, thanks, Gary. As you guys just mentioned, the crew is awake aboard the station, preparing to welcome the Crew 2 astronauts tomorrow. On docking day, NASA's Victor Glover will be primed for monitoring Dragon for its final approach and will take the lead on hatch operations. And back here in Mission Control Houston, the Orbit 1 team is still on console, being led by Flight Director Paul Kanya. The flight controllers are in the middle of a shift handover, so Flight Director Adi Boulos will be leading the next shift of flight controllers. Several hours before crew boarded Dragon, the space station did their own go, no-go poll. There are several key systems we have to ensure are functioning properly before NASA can give their go for launch. And everything is still looking good on the station side for Dragon's arrival, so let's head back to Hawthorne for the latest on what's next for Dragon.
All right, over the next 22 hours, Dragon will execute a series of burns, which will gradually raise its orbit to align more closely with the station. We've completed the first of our 5 major burns, the phase burn, that will bring the spacecraft close to station before we begin final approach maneuvers.
The next burn, which is based on what our orbital data shows us, is the boost burn, which raises Dragon's orbit until its orbit reaches an altitude just 10 kilometers lower than the space station. Followed soon after by the close co-elliptic burn to place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the space station. Now this means that the crew will be about 10 kilometers lower than the station during their entire orbit around the Earth. The fourth maneuver is the transfer burn, where we're raising Dragon's apogee, or highest point of its orbit, to just 2.5 kilometers below station. Then we round everything out with a final co-elliptic burn to once again maintain a constant orbit beneath station, this time just 2.5 kilometers below.
Then we'll get into the approach initiation and final stages of Dragon's rendezvous with the space station. This is also when we start integrated operations between the Dragon control team here in Hawthorne and the space station flight controllers in Mission Control Houston. The teams will transition to integrated operations roughly 45 minutes prior to approach initiation. During the approach, SpaceX flight controllers will work in tandem with the NASA team in Houston to activate and test out a number of systems on Dragon, including bidirectional communications with the station using the C2V2 system, which stands for Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, and sets up a data stream from Dragon to the station, giving another path for Dragon telemetry to come to the ground and giving an additional command capability to astronauts aboard the station. They'll also maneuver Dragon to the proper attitude and initialize the navigation sensors used for the methodical approach to the station.
Tomorrow at approximately 12:40 a.m. Pacific Time, or 7:40 GMT, Draco thrusters on Dragon will fire for the approach initiation burn when Dragon is about 2.5 kilometers below station and just about 7 kilometers behind it. This will swing Dragon up until it's about 400 meters directly below the station. This maneuver will also move Dragon inside one of the 2 safety zones around the station that requires a set of go-no-go pulls with the different control teams. The first zone is called the approach ellipsoid, which is an imaginary shape measuring 4 by 2 by 2 kilometers, essentially a large 3-dimensional oval. Before Dragon is given permission to move inside this ellipsoid, referred to by the teams as the AE, it is configured to be on what is known as a 24-hour safe trajectory. This means that if Dragon lost all control to its thrusters, it would be at least 24 hours before its orbital path would take it inside the approach ellipsoid.
Once Dragon arrives at 400 meters below the station, it will be at Waypoint 0, which is the first checkpoint during our approach. The vehicle can hold at 400 meters or continue on if all systems check out to approach to Waypoint 1. By this point, the teams will do a go, no-go poll for Dragon to move inside the keep-out sphere, another zone that consists of an imaginary sphere around the station with a radius of 200 meters.
SpaceX for status update.
Go ahead.
And Dragon, we're working on some troubleshooting here regarding the privatization of the channel. Just wanted to check in with you because we've been out of comm for a little bit. If you're willing to stand by, we can still get that PMC and work.
Okay, we have nothing to report, so it's up to you.
Okay, we copy. We will still attempt this PMC and keep you updated on next steps.
Copy that.
Okay, so what you just heard from Core Chad Healy here in Mission Control Hawthorne, some status on the Dragon itself as they were in a loss of signal period with Dragon's orbit. That will be coming up soon. So we were describing Dragon's approach to the International Space Station with the Dragon making its way inside the keep-out sphere. Now, once it makes its way inside, it's another chance to confirm all of the guidance, navigation, and control systems are working correctly on Dragon before moving closer to the station, and it carries a requirement similar to the AE that Dragon's orbital trajectory would not bring it inside the sphere if control was lost, but this time only for 4 orbits, or about 6 hours instead of 24 hours.
Dragon's move from waypoint 0 to waypoint 1 will swing it up and out in front of the station, pausing at a distance of approximately 220 meters. At this point, it will be on what we call the docking axis, which essentially means it is directly in front of the docking port. The crew is headed to the forwardmost port on the International Space Station, which is the Node 2 forward port. That is where Dragon docked for both of our demonstration missions as well as Crew 1 last November. For those following along, Resilience, the Dragon spacecraft used for Crew 1, recently moved from the forward port to the space-facing port on the Harmony module in order to make room for the arrival of Crew 2. Harmony, or Node 2, is where both the international docking adapters are located. These were installed for new commercial spacecraft flights and any other future spacecraft that also uses the international docking standard.
Now, once Dragon is only 20 meters away at waypoint 2, the spacecraft focuses on aligning its docking system with the docking adapter. Dragon will then fly in and make contact with the docking adapter, giving us what we call a soft capture. The soft capture ring then retracts until sensors indicate it's time for hooks to drive in place to give us a hard capture and firmly secure Dragon to the station. Then it's time for leak checks and hatch opening, which is currently timelined to come about 2 hours following docking.
So lots of action still to cover over the next 22 hours. So stay with us as we continue our live coverage of NASA and SpaceX's Crew 2 mission to the International Space Station.
All right, if you're still with us, we are not going anywhere. We're going to continue our coverage of Crew Dragon's approach to the International Space Station. Now, coming up in just about 5 minutes on NASA TV, you're going to see a post-launch briefing over at the Kennedy Space Center. That's at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check out that briefing, and then once it ends, come back to us. Or if you'd like to continue to watch our coverage, you can watch us over at SpaceX's YouTube channel. We're not going away, and we'll continue to provide coverage of Crew Dragon's approach to the International Space Station.
And while we coast, let's take some more of your questions from social. Keep using the hashtag LaunchAmerica. And here is a question. Why does it take almost 24 hours to get to the space station when Soyuz only takes about 6 hours?
That's right. It does have to do with the trajectory. It has to do with the not so much the capabilities of the Crew Dragon itself. Even on Demo 2, it was a little bit shorter, not quite the 23 hours we're seeing, but it was slightly shorter than that. Really, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is the trajectory and of the orbital path from Dragon at sea level in Florida all the way to rendezvous with the International Space Station. But another key item to consider here is the crew's wake schedule. It is a long day to go from the ground, suit up, wake up. You go through the whole thing to get into Dragon and go ahead to launch. So what they have to do when considering trajectories is to build in some time for the crew to get a sleep period. In fact, that's something we're going to see here in the next couple of hours, the crew going into a sleep period. They'll get 8 hours allotted for them to get some shut-eye, finding space around the Dragon, whether it's in their seat or whether it's strapped to a wall. They'll be able to do that and make their way to the International Space Station that way.
Sleep is a very good thing to get. We have another one here. Good morning. Good morning. Great job. Thank you. Congrats to NASA and SpaceX. What size is or dimensions of the International Space Station, if you know offhand, Gary, and how many total crew can the International Space Station hold?
Yeah, these are great questions that are coming in. So it's about the size of an American football field. That is the size that we like to say. In terms of volume, it's about the size of a 5-bedroom house, about 29,000 cubic feet is if you're thinking of it that way. But 5-bedroom house, or about the length of a 747 fuselage. So that's about the proportion size. It's roomy. It's got a room.
Sounds pretty big.
Yeah, for 11 crew that are going to be there for 4 days. There's plenty of space for everyone to find a different place to sleep. In fact, everyone's really going to get their own room. If you think about it, everyone will either get a bedroom or the Crew Dragon or their own module of the International Space Station. There is that much space to accommodate that.
Very cool. We've got another question here. What are the snacks the Crew 2 can eat during the journey to the space station? And how about water?
Yeah, plenty of snacks on board Crew 2. So they have enough meals for 12 meals, I believe, each. That's a lot of food. They don't necessarily need that for the journey as a baseline because it's only 23 hours. If you were to have 12 meals, yeah, you wouldn't
be pretty full, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily need that. But that's really just in case there is any sort of contingency where they would have to go on a 24-hour safe trajectory. You got some food for the ride back as well. Those meals ready to eat do last a long time. They're shelf stable for quite some time. But they do have snacks, and then they'll be able to eat, occasionally have some drinks until they get to the International Space Station.
We're now in a good configuration for the PMC. Let us know when you are ready.
Copy, we're ready.
Okay, copy. Got to privatize the channel. Next call will be from the surgeon on Dragon to Ground.
All right, so we won't hear Dragon to Ground communications to the Crew 2 astronauts on board Dragon Endeavour, Crew Dragon Endeavour, for a while. That you just heard that Dragon to Ground line that we're just hearing with the Quindar in front of it. That's the communications
Megan McArthur in the front, Megan blowing kisses. Thomas and Aki ready for their ride to the space station. And here they come, the Crew 2 astronauts taking their first steps outside before their journey to space.
Yay!
I love this moment. They're now going to have the opportunity to wave goodbye from a safe distance. And it looks like Bob Behnken is there and with the son of he and Megan McArthur.
ONC departure on schedule.
Right, so we just heard that announcement that the crew has departed the operations and checkout building on schedule. And we can see the astronauts inside the crew access arm. Commander Shane Kimbrough, here he is climbing inside Crew Dragon Endeavour. We call this process ingress.
We now see suit technicians will help the crew members get buckled in. As you can see, the side hatch has just been closed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Mission and liftoff. Godspeed, Endeavour and Crew 2.
Copy, 1 Alpha.
Endeavour launches once again. 4 astronauts from 3 countries on Crew 2, now making their way to the one and only International Space Station. The vehicle is pitching downrange. 9 Merlin engines on the first stage providing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Hearing good calls on first stage performance so far.
Plus 30 seconds into the second rotational crew mission on board Dragon and Falcon 9.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Earlier today at 5:49 a.m., NASA and SpaceX Crew 2 mission blasted off from Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39A. The Crew 2 mission is the second crew rotation flight of the Crew Dragon spacecraft and Falcon 9 rocket, carrying NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur, Jaxa astronaut Akihiko Hoshide, and ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet to the International Space Station. My name is Jackie McGinnis, NASA Press Secretary, and I'm joined here today by Acting NASA Administrator Steve Jurczyk, Elon Musk, Chief Engineer at SpaceX, Kathy Leaders, Associate Administrator for NASA's Human Exploration Operations Mission Directorate, Steve Stitch, Manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, Joe Montalbano, Manager of the International Space Station Program at NASA, Hiroshi Sasaki, Vice President and Director General of Jaxa's Human Spaceflight Technology Directorate, and Frank Chavina, Manager of the International Space Station Program at the European Space Agency. Each speaker will make brief remarks, and then we will open the lines for questions from the media. For reporters on the line, press *1 to get into the queue to ask a question. Please remember to state your name and media affiliation before you speak, and address the speaker you'd like to answer your question. Please only ask one question and address one per speaker at a time. You may enter the queue again and ask additional questions. First up, we'll hear from Acting Administrator Steve Jurczyk.
Hey, thank you, Jackie, and it's just great to be here today. So first, I want to thank and congratulate the NASA team, SpaceX team, and our international partners. What we do is really challenging, but also rewarding, and we could not do it without our commercial and international partners. So thank you and congratulations. Watching a launch from Kennedy Space Center never gets old for me. I've watched many launches, and watching a pre-DAW launch is especially exciting and just visually stunning. And this launch was, and a little bit different for me this time as acting administrator, but again, I'm just congratulations to the team. I could not be more proud of the team. It's been a really incredible year for NASA, for all our mission areas, but particularly for human spaceflight with 3 launches in 11 months. And it's hard to believe it was just 11 months ago, last May, where we were in the room we were watching the launch from today and doing the first flight readiness review for a human exploration mission in just about a decade. And then we did the Demo 2 mission. And it's just been incredible to be a part of it. This marks many important milestones, but it really is important for getting a regular cadence of crew to the station and back. And it's going to really accelerate the research and technology development that we're able to do on station. And I'm really looking forward to what crew, I've really enjoyed watching what Crew 1 has been able to accomplish. And I'm going to really enjoy what Crew 2 is going to do on their 6-month stint on ISS. It took 10 years to get here, to achieve this bold vision we had for commercial crew. And again, it's been amazing what the team has been able to accomplish. What we do on ISS is important, not only for the research and technology development that we do for here on Earth, but also to prepare for what we're going to do in the future. So ISS is not only important for our commercial activities in space and stimulating those, but also for our exploration missions. We'll continue to celebrate the marvels of the International Space Station and the science and technology development that it'll be conducting as we look to the future of sending astronauts to lunar orbit and eventually the surface, and then our ultimate goal of sending astronauts to Mars. So coupled with our robotic exploration and our Earth science missions that look down at Earth, I'm proud to be a part of this team that makes it all happen and look easy. And I can assure you it is not easy. But we have an incredibly talented team at NASA, along with our commercial international partners, and I know they've gotten the job done this last year, and I know they're going to get the job done moving forward. So thank you.
Thanks. And now we have Elon Musk, Chief Engineer at SpaceX.
Thank you. I think actually Steve said really all the really important things. I'm just really proud of the SpaceX team and honored to be partnered with NASA and helping with Jaxa and ESA as well. Just thrilled to be part of advancing human spaceflight, and looking forward to going beyond Earth orbit to the Moon and Mars, and helping make humanity a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species one day. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Kathy Leaders, Associate Administrator for NASA's Human Exploration Operations Mission Directorate.
Wow. I mean, I think I'm just always amazed at the NASA and in particular the SpaceX team that diligently stepped through and got us ready to fly once again. And really want to thank Elon and the team from a HEO perspective, and thank Steve Stitch and Joel here, who have been working really hard to keep this cadence going. It's a very, very, very exciting time for human exploration right now, just like Steve said. Joel every day advances science and technology on the International Space Station, and that has really been enabled with the activities and the flights that SpaceX has provided for us over the last 11 months, like we said, and the commercial crew team has been working to keep that science and technology development going. Joel's had a busy month. We were talking the other day about he just had a Soyuz launch, a Soyuz landing. Now we've got a commercial crew launch, and we're going to be obviously working through and making sure we get the 4 crew members there and safely to station. But then Steve and Joel are going to be getting ready for a Crew 1 landing with the SpaceX folks. So very, very, very exciting time for us. In addition, we've got a core stage coming in next week, which will be joining the solid rocket motors that have now been stacked in the VAB and the Orion spacecraft that's now been fueled, getting ready for our first Artemis 1 uncrewed demonstration mission. So we're going to be working and getting our exploration system ready to go, and very, very excited about that. In addition, last week we had announced to SpaceX the Human Landing System Demonstration Mission 2. So this is, when I took over for HEOAA, I thought, after that Demo 2 mission, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be missing out on these fun missions. But really, I kind of have the best of all worlds now, with all the cool missions that Joel and Steve, the Artemis team's doing, and further missions going forward to Moon and then eventually Mars. So very, very exciting time for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Now we have Steve Stitch, manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program.
Thank you, Jackie. As I watched the video play before we started our opening remarks, it's just reflected on the last 2 years. As Steve Jerzyk said, we have now 3 crewed missions in just over 11 months. And when I think about and watch the video, I just think about the team that we have between NASA, Commercial Crew, and SpaceX. An incredible team that refurbished this Crew 1 booster that just flew, our Crew 2 team to the space station, refurbishing the Dragon spacecraft over these last 10 months, and just all the hard work across the country from the SpaceX team, the NASA team, and certifying it. I was thinking about some of the meetings we have, and SpaceX and NASA work so well together. At times during these meetings, people will finish each other's sentences. One person on the SpaceX side may say something, and NASA knows exactly what that person is thinking. It's just tremendous teamwork. Dragon's doing well in orbit. The crew is out of their suits right now. The crew is in the middle of a meal. They'll go to bed this afternoon here about 2 Eastern and sleep until about 10 p.m. And then they'll get in their suits Saturday morning at about 2:50 a.m. Eastern time for the final rendezvous and docking, and they'll make contact about 5:10 a.m. Eastern with a final docking around 5:23 a.m. So kind of a busy time for the crew and the ground teams as they look over Dragon. As I said, Dragon is doing very well. Today the weather cooperated. We moved the launch one day. We looked at the abort weather, and the downrange abort track wasn't very good for Thursday. We moved that launch one day, and the weather just cooperated great today. The vehicle improvements that SpaceX embarked upon for this flight, adding capability to handle onshore winds today was the difference really in getting off with the onshore winds. With the vehicle we had for Crew 1 and Demo 2, we would not have gotten off. The countdown was very smooth. We worked a couple of things, checking out a cover on the Draco thruster and making sure the hydraulic system was ready to go. But other than that, the countdown was extremely smooth today. A lot of people worked very hard to put that together. And then, as Kathy alluded to, it's a busy time for us. We'll get the crew docked on Saturday, and then after we get them safely on board, we'll start to focus on the Crew 1 return. And preliminarily, we're looking at undocking on Wednesday, April the 28th, at about 7 a.m. Eastern time, and the targeted touchdown is Tallahassee with a landing on Wednesday, April 28th, about 12:40. It's a busy time for us. It's an exciting time. It's the first time we've done this direct handover, and I'm just really proud to be part of the team.
Thanks, Steve. Now we have Joel Montalbano, manager of the ISS program at NASA.
Hello again. That's just an outstanding launch and a great way to end the week. We're excited to have another commercial crew mission on board and in space coming to the International Space Station. And these missions allow us to keep our utilization and research program, our technology development for Artemis, and our low Earth orbit commercialization activities on board the International Space Station moving forward with an incredible amount of steam. These missions, they enable these activities on board. So we're excited to have it. We're also excited to have 11 people on board after docking, and it'll only be a short time, but it's something that we've been preparing for, and we're looking forward to it. After launch, we did inform the crew on board the International Space Station that we had a successful launch, and company was on its way. They did pass congratulations to the team on the ground, and I'd like to also pass my congratulations to the Commercial Crew Program and the SpaceX teams for just an outstanding launch today. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Now we have Hiroshi Sasaki, Vice President and Director General of JAXA's Human Spaceflight Technology Directorate.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm Hiroshi Sasaki, a Vice President for JAXA, responsible for human spaceflight and space explorations. First of all, on behalf of Jaxa, I would like to express my sincere thanks to NASA, SpaceX, and all staff who have been working for these missions under the severe COVID-19 situations. As reported earlier, the Crew Dragon was launched into the orbit nominally. The mission sequence is still going on, but I'd like to congratulate all of you on the successful launch. I have already seen Crew Dragon launch for Japanese astronaut Soichi Noguchi last November, and I am so delighted again to be part of the team here today. It is really a great pleasure, not only for me, but also the Japan, that the two Japanese astronauts, Soichi and Aki, on board the operational flight of Crew Dragon twice in a row. They will meet together at the ISS. I believe this is brought by the very close tie between Japan and the US for many years through the ISS program. Akihiko Hoshide, on board the Crew 2, will contribute to the Expedition 65-62 mission as a commander. I hope he will jointly create fruitful outcomes together with his fellow astronauts, working also very closely with colleagues on the ground. During these missions, Jaxa is planning to perform various scientific and technical research, such as the protein crystal growth for medicine design, contributing to the people on the ground, and demonstration on enhanced water recovery system, preparing the future exploration mission as well. Jaxa is also going to hold a robotic program challenge with NASA to inspire young people around the world. I am looking forward to see that Aki will contribute to those activities through the great teamwork. I believe the Crew 2 mission is a symbol of international and industry partnership. 4 crew members from NASA, ESA, and Jaxa on board Crew Dragon, launched by the SpaceX. I believe it's the first time that the NASA, ESA, and the Jaxa astronauts flying to and stay for long duration at the ISS together. Human space activities are really a great global endeavor that people pushing the human boundaries from the LEO to the moon and even beyond. I am confident that the international partnership is truly important, and Japan will contribute to take part in this human endeavor by making the best use of our expertise, such as ecosystem and transfer vehicles. We are going together. Once again, congratulations on the successful launch. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Frank Davina, manager of the ISS program at ESA.
Thank you, Jackie. What a great day, and what an excitement to see the 4 crew members and, of course, our ESA astronaut, Thomas Pesquet, launch on Crew Dragon to the International Space Station. It's a great time for us. We have permanently now 4 USOS crew members on orbit, meaning that the crew time that we have available for science and utilization has drastically increased, and we thank the partners and of course SpaceX and NASA, but all the international partners to make this happen. Thomas will have a busy schedule. On the 15th of July we will also launch the MLM module with our colleagues from Roscosmos, and on that module will be the European robotic arm. And so Thomas will also be involved in the commissioning and the checkout of this European robotic arm that we have been waiting for long to launch to the International Space Station. And after Thomas, we will have Matthias Maurer that will launch in the fall of this year, and after that Samantha Cristoforetti. So for the first time, we will have 3 ESA astronauts in a row that will be permanently on board of the International Space Station. So really great times to come for the European Space Agency. All the science technology that we do, it's of course for the benefit of people here on Earth and for humankind, but it's also to prepare for the future. ESA, together with our colleagues from Jaxa and Canada, are part of the Gateway program, We are looking forward to further work with NASA on those programs, to have our ESA astronauts fly to the gateway, but not stop there. We also want to have in the future our ESA astronauts walk on the surface of the moon. So exciting times to be in human spaceflight, and really looking forward to further enhance this great international cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. As a reminder for reporters on the line, press *1 to get into the queue and ask a question. First up, we have Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press.
A gorgeous launch. For Elon, could you describe your emotions at liftoff, and does it get any easier for you on a personal level being responsible for lives after 3 crew flights? Thank you.
Yeah, it's very, very intense. I suppose it does get a little bit easier, but it's still extremely intense. And I usually can't sleep the night before launch, and that's true of the night before this one. So I haven't had much sleep. But fortunately, we've got a great team that are really, really proud of the incredible work the team has done in partnership with NASA. And yeah, I suppose it gets a little bit easier, but still pretty intense, I have to say. Yeah. It's hard to believe that we're here doing this, quite frankly. Feels like a dream.
Thank you. And now we have Bill Harwood with CBS.
Thanks, and again, congratulations to all of you for this launch. 3 Crew Dragon flights in less than a year is quite a record, and I guess for Mr. Musk, I realize this current flight is less than 2 hours old right now, but can you tell us anything about the schedule for the next flight, the Inspiration 4 launch schedule? And one question I think a lot of us have is how do you do that flight without working with NASA? I mean, in terms of crew quarters and suit up and facilities in general. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I think we'll still be obviously coordinating with NASA, and that'll be sort of a free flyer mission with a kind of a big kind of glass dome in the front instead of docking adapter. So it should give quite a different feel for, like, you should really feel like you're in space more than one, because it'll just be you just surrounded by glass or acrylic technically, but. Yeah, so yeah, we're looking forward to that mission. But obviously still be working in coordination with NASA for that mission. So that should be, hopefully, like as the name suggests, inspiration. And actually, I think that's the thing about human spaceflight is that it's one of those things that makes people excited about the future. You look forward to wake up in the morning and think, hey, what's going to be great about the future? It's like, man, if we're out there and we're a spacefaring civilization and visiting other planets and there's exciting plans, I think that's what gets, one of those things that gets people fired up, Yeah, certainly gets me fired up, obviously.
Thank you. Now we have Eric Berger with Ars Technica.
Hi, good morning, and congratulations to everyone on this. A couple of questions. First of all, maybe for Steve Stitch, can you comment on the fact that, in less than 4 years, I guess, or it's been about 4 years since SpaceX first launched a Falcon 9 rocket for the second time, the SES-10 mission. Has it been a rapid process to try to get to the certification of the Falcon 9, previously flown rockets for crew? And Elon, can you comment on the Human Landing System award last Friday? How important is it to SpaceX that NASA showed that kind of confidence in Starship and is now talking about using the vehicle for the moon and potentially Mars? Thank you.
Yeah. I'll take the first question regarding the certification of the Falcon 9. For the first flight for Demo 2 for Bob and Doug, we had gone through a certification of the rocket for one flight. So we had started to understand the systems. We actually follow the whole fleet of all the flights that SpaceX flies. SpaceX has been a great partner in sharing data in every single flight, and we were able to look at the performance. So over time, we started to understand how the engines perform, how the rocket itself performs. And then in a partnership with SpaceX, we went through and looked at every single piece of the launch vehicle, the engines, the structures, everything about the re-entry and the heating, and we were able to, in about 10 months, go through on the order of 400 or so certification products. In addition to those products delivered by SpaceX, we also did our independent analysis of certain key components from a structural perspective. We looked at the heating for entry and did an independent assessment of that to make sure that we were comfortable with the margins. And so it was quite an extensive effort in 10 months by our team, and an incredible partnership between NASA and SpaceX.
And Elon?
Yeah, it's a great honor to be chosen by NASA to return people to the moon. It's been now almost half a century since humans were last on the moon. It's too long. We need to get back there and have a permanent base on the moon. I think like a big permanently occupied base on the moon, and then build a city on Mars and become a spacefaring, like a spacefaring civilization, a multi-planet species. We don't want to be one of those single-planet species. We want to be a multi-planet species. So, yeah.
Thank you. Now we have Irene Klotz with Aviation Week.
Thanks, Jackie, and congratulations. That was a really exotic launch this morning. For Elon, how will the funding from HLS impact your design and development and schedule for Starship, and what's been kind of your technological challenges with the project so far?
Well, I mean, this has definitely been really helpful funding the Starship program. It's mostly been funded internally thus far, and it's pretty expensive. As you can tell if you've been watching the videos, we've blown up a few of them. So excitement guaranteed, one way or another. So it's a tough vehicle to build because we're trying to crack this nut of a rapid and fully and rapidly reusable rocket. And I apologize, I'm a little slow on the uptake here as I'm going on not much sleep at all. But the thing that's really important to revolutionize space is a rapidly reusable rocket. That's reliable too. So that's really what needs to happen. If that can be done, then the cost of access to orbit and beyond can be reduced by potentially a factor of 100 or more. So that's really what is most important about. It's got to be done by somebody's got to do this. And if you have rapid and complete reusability, then that opens up. That is the gateway to the heavens. That's what matters. That's what we're trying to get done, and the support of NASA makes a huge difference.
Thank you. To media on the line, just a reminder to focus your questions this morning on the Crew 2 mission. That would be greatly appreciated. Next up, we have Joey Roulette with The Verge.
Hey, thanks, Jackie, and congrats everyone on a good launch. This question's for Elon Musk. From your perspective, I was just wondering if you are plugged in or if you have any idea what the holdup on getting an agreement with the Russians for flying cosmonauts on Crew Dragon is. Would you like to see cosmonauts flying on Crew Dragon sooner than later? And since HLS was mentioned earlier, I was just wondering how soon will Starship be able to put humans on the moon? Thanks.
I do not have any insight on that with regard to the cosmonauts, but of course we would be honored to fly cosmonauts on Dragon. But I do not have any insight into any potential objections. I'm not. Perhaps this may be just a communications breakdown. I don't know, but I don't have any insight into it.
Yeah, I'll help out with that. I mean, we're actually working through the agreements right now, And I think people understand, and I think we talked about this in the post-FR news conference, that people understand the importance of, you know, crew swaps for supportability of ISS, and so we're working through that and getting that agreement in place. It takes a while sometimes. I found out there's lots of people to coordinate with, so it doesn't happen as fast probably as I want it to, but we're working through it.
Thank you. And now we have Stephen Clark with Spaceflight Now.
Thank you, and congratulations to everyone. My question is for Elon Musk as well. This was the first time you've launched astronauts on a reused Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon, although it's far from the first time you've done that for, overall through your flight history. I'm curious, as you develop Starship to focus on that rapid full reusability as you're flying your manifest with Falcon 9, how many missions do you think you can get out of a Falcon 9 booster? And is that something you're willing to push the limit on to, keep flying one until it breaks, or for a Starlink mission, for example, or do you see like a plateau or a ceiling in terms of flight number for a Falcon 9 booster going forward?
Well, there doesn't seem to be any obvious limit to the reusability of the vehicle, and yeah, we do intend to fly the Falcon 9 booster until we see some kind of a failure with the Starlink missions. Obviously, just have that be a life leader. And we're just actually talking in the control room. I was talking with the between SpaceX and NASA, and we're like wondering, what's the optimal number of launches for? Do you want to be on a brand new booster, or well, you probably don't want to be on the life leader for a crew mission, but it's probably good to have a flight or two under its belt for the booster to have flown, once or twice. I think if it was like an aircraft coming out of an aircraft factory, you'd want the aircraft to probably have gone on a test flight or two before, you put passengers on. So, I think that's probably, a couple of flights is a good number to have for a crew booster. And in the meantime, we'll keep flying the life leader. We've got 9 flights on one of the boosters. We're going to have a 10th flight soon with a Starlink mission. And we're learning a lot about reusability, and it's a hard problem for rockets. I mean, there's a reason it's really, right now, Falcon 9 is the only partially reusable rocket being flown, with the booster coming back and the fairing coming back, but we don't reuse the upper stage or the Dragon trunk. And so with the Starship, we're aiming at just like hopefully reuse the whole thing. But this is a hard problem for rockets, that's for sure. And it's taken us, we're like 19 years in now. But I think we can see the Starship design can work. It's a hard thing to solve, and the support of NASA is very much appreciated in this regard. I don't know. I think it's gonna work. I think it's gonna work.
Thank you. And next up, we have David Curley with the Discovery Channel.
Hi there. Sorry, unmuting. For anybody, NASA or SpaceX, was Bob Behnken allowed to leave anything for Megan in the Dragon? And Elon, it's been a long journey with the HLS and everything else. On the arc of what you're hoping to do, are you going faster or slower? I know you had some frustrations early, but where do you see bigger picture we are and where we need to go? Thank you.
I guess I'll take the question of Bob. I don't know of anything specific that he left for Megan. He certainly left a lot of love, tenderness, and care of that vehicle while he flew it. And for me as the program manager for Commercial Crew, it's pretty exciting to see, Bob having flown that vehicle for the first time, testing it out, and taking it for a spin for his wife Megan, and she gets to take it for a little longer. So it's kind of cool to see the two flying the same vehicle, and the first time that we've reused that vehicle. So.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if people saw the zero-G indicator this time, which is this cute, fluffy penguin called my first penguin. It's this cute, fluffy penguin that's floating around in zero-G right now. I don't know if there's a picture of that, but it's kind of cute. And then, let's see. I mean, it's been 19 years since starting SpaceX, and certainly a lot of adventures along the way. Some tough times and a lot of good times. I'd say it's only recently though that I think that I feel that full and rapid reusability can be accomplished. And I wasn't sure for a long time, but I'm sure now.
Thank you. And next up, we have Jeff Faust with Space News.
Good morning. Question for Elon Musk. It took years of development to get the Crew Dragon to the point where you could have a successful series of missions like Crew 2 this morning. At what point do you think Starship will be ready to start carrying people? Thanks.
Well, I think we are trying to keep these questions to, more limited to this, this mission, but it's difficult to speculate with respect to, I don't know. If I tend to be, as you know, I tend to be somewhat optimistic with respect to schedules. I feel I should acknowledge this. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think it's not out of the question that it could be ready for fly people in a couple of years. Obviously, we need to not be making craters, Yeah, otherwise it's like hop in. We're going to Mars. No, not quite, not yet. It's got some work to do, but making rapid progress. I think we got to make sure we're accelerating the rate of innovation, and then it could be ready in a couple of years.
Thank you. Now we have Eric Niler with Wired.
Greetings. Congratulations to everybody. Senator Bill Nelson mentioned a 2024 timetable for a lunar landing through HLS during a confirmation hearing on Capitol Hill, and I'm just wondering from Elon whether that's kind of a crazy talk, or is that something you feel optimistic about?
I think that can be done. Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to build a lot of rockets, and we're going to probably smash a bunch of them. But I think it will happen. I think 2024. This seems likely. We're going to aim for sooner than that, but I think I think this is actually doable. Yes.
Thanks. And we have time for one more question. Camden Hall from Talk of Titusville.
Thanks for taking my question. My question is for Elon. Where were you watching the launch from? Were you in the LCC like you were for Demo 2 or somewhere else? Thanks.
Yeah, I was in launch control, and yeah. It's funny. It's the same place, the same launch control at where the lunar missions were launched from. It's pretty wild. It's the same windows, same glass. So it's a little hard to see out at night. During the day, it's a lot easier to see out. The view from the roof is actually better than the view from launch control. But you get to see all the data there. So yeah. I don't know. The future's looking good. I think we're at the dawn of a new era of space exploration.
Thank you again to all of our speakers and to our reporters. That's going to wrap things up for us here. Our Crew 2 mission coverage continues on NASA TV. We'll have live coverage all the way to the International Space Station, including Crew Dragon docking, hatch opening, and the welcome ceremony. Docking is targeting at 5:10 a.m. Saturday, April 24th, with hatch opening at 7:15 a.m. and the welcome ceremony at 7:45 a.m. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Radiation burn when Dragon is about 2.5 kilometers below the station and just about 7 kilometers behind it.